Joining me now is former White House Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor at Bardney Partners, Mick Mulvaney. Mick, thanks so much for joining us on the show. Huge news out of the Supreme Court this week, which has decided to rule on Donald Trump's claim that he has immunity from prosecution on charges that he plotted to overturn the 2020 election. What does this mean? How does it go? And if the court grants Trump immunity, will this lead to a new effort to delegitimize the court by the left?
Yes to all of the above, James. Let's sort of walk through what might happen. The court could say that Trump is immune from any sorts of claims. That would essentially be a dismissal of the action against him in Washington, D.C. related to January 6th, and likely lead to a dismissal of the actions against him in the state of Georgia. And for that reason would lead to efforts by the left to further delegitimize the Supreme Court. If, however, they go the other way, and it's likely they will, most legal scholars I've talked to, and I used to practice law a long time ago, don't see how the president really makes a claim here for total immunity. So if the court goes the other way and says that Trump is not immune, there's still a huge benefit to Trump in that this delays the trial. There's a really, really good chance now that this trial might not take place. I'm talking now about the January 6th federal criminal action might not take place until right before or right after the November 2024 general election. And it might not actually be finished until after the election. So in theory, you could have Donald Trump in trial on election day, winning that night, and then found guilty a week later, which just leads down the road to a whole bunch of bizarre sort of outcomes.
Well, it does, but also it does when you put it in the bigger context of the other Trump legal issues. You know, the Georgia case against him, well, that's become a whole mess. Other cases are being delayed and likely not happening until after the election as well. Has the lawfare strategy of the left to get Trump off the ballot or keep him, from running or winning, is that starting to fall apart here?
No, it's still quite successful. Here's what's happening is that, yes, Trump is going to win the cases to allow him to stay on the ballot. There's no way any court ultimately will kick him off of the ballot. So he'll win that battle. And he's winning in sort of the court of public opinion. Keep in mind, he was actually doing worse in polls before all this lawfare started. So that message that he's made very effectively, that is, look what they're doing to me. If they can do it to me, imagine what they can do to you. Elect me and I'll make sure that doesn't happen. That continues to sell. Here's the one place it's hurting him. It's hurting him with money. It absolutely is. It's draining his campaign. Joe Biden has almost twice as much money saved up for the general election right now as Donald Trump does. So at that particular very critical part of the American political process, it is working, and it is sapping funds that Donald Trump could otherwise use to run against Joe Biden.
But, Mick, back to what you just said there about how people are reacting to this. Would you say that the Democrats have made a real mistake in essentially building Trump up into this huge monster? Because if they just treated him like a normal candidate, then he probably wouldn't wind up getting all of this attention and support that he's getting from being able to say he's being persecuted.
Yeah, but they can't do that, James. Trump derangement syndrome is absolutely real. Donald Trump just does something to the left that no other Republican, conservative, right-leaning politician has done in my lifetime. They cannot help themselves. Keep in mind that every time they have what they perceive to be a win against him in court, they go home to their cocktail parties in Washington, D.C. and Manhattan and high-five and celebrate, and he goes up 2 and 3 points in the polls. It's just the most bizarre thing I've ever seen, but the left can't help themselves.